Welcome to my story. It's story time again. Believing in Paradise. That is the story. We're going to be on chapter 1. So, all good stories should start in the beginning, but boy, the beginning. I just don't have time for that. I want to get to the good stuff, the juicy stuff. I don't want to dwell on the negative past. And um, so here we go. I'm going to start I'm going to start on Exodus. Exodus is when I got to leave my family, and when I say I got to leave, I mean that wholeheartedly. Um, I was living in Utah. I was 15 years old. Previously, I had lived in Kentucky. My father was a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, Bible thumper, and he had spent time in prison for trying to blow up the United Nations building and was previously the bodyguard for the leader of the American Nazi Party, George Lincoln Rockwell. And needless to say, he was an angry, intense, violent man. And when he got out of prison, he was very, very preaching the Bible stuff. And he decided that the Bible says he could have 7 wives, and that women and children are property and he can sell them if he wants. And he decided he was going to move us to Utah and he was going to be a polygamist. So he put the moves on a woman who moved across the street from us and got her pregnant and moved us all to Utah, where he was going to be a Mormon, even though that was illegal at the time. And so I was filled with a lot of shame over what was happening in my family, a lot of fear of my father, a lot of violence, or fear of the violence. And, daily we were being beat for forgetting to take out the trash and, whatever things that not cleaning the kitchen properly every night. So there was a lot of kids. And every night we had to wash the dishes. And if there was a few specks left over, he would line us up against the wall and we'd put our hands on the wall and he would beat us with a belt that he named Billy Willigans. And I was terrified to come home from school like every day. And because I was afraid of what I was going to be in trouble for then. And when we moved there, I was in the 6th grade. And so I became desperate to, feel good about myself. And I did that through trying to be popular, trying to look good. Um, I really made an effort. By the time high school came around, and I had very low self-esteem in middle school. But by the time high school came around, I made this huge effort to be pretty, to fit in, and to be popular. And it was all phony. It was, external stuff trying to make myself look specifically good. And it was also saying things that, I knew would be repeated and just kind of playing this game. And I did it and it worked. I became popular. I didn't have any real close friends, but I was popular. And then I became obsessed with wanting to be a fashion model because I saw that as, the light at the end of the tunnel, that I could, uh, money and fame, that was going to solve my problems. And prior to that, I'd spent a lot of time up in the mountains behind my house. I lived in the suburbs of Salt Lake, up against the Rocky Mountains, which were phenomenal, absolutely stunning mountains, just straight up. And that was at my back door. I could walk 10 minutes and be at the base of these mountains. It was just wilderness. And I used to spend a lot of time up there, just laying on a rock by a stream and playing in the stream and imagining running away and living in these woods. And the only reason I did not run away to live in the woods in the mountains was because I didn't know what I would do when I had my period or when I needed to blow my nose and I wouldn't get a college education. And I thought at the time that I needed it. I still don't have a college education, but that stopped me from running away. And then, so as I played the game in high school, it became this high that I actually substituted the beauty and connection I had with the land that made me feel good for the attention I got for being pretty and being popular. And I just kept working that. And then I got into modeling. And then I really was focused on having this fortune and beauty and whatever modeling fame that I wanted. And I was doing small modeling gigs at the time in Salt Lake, and the agent that I had one day called me and said, they're having a model search in Scottsdale, Arizona. Do you want to go? It's $500. And I was like, no. And I didn't have the money. She's like, well, I'll pay for it. And I said, oh, okay. So we drove down to Scottsdale with a couple other models for this competition, and we were staying at this fancy resort. And one day I was laying outside with a friend, a fellow model friend from Salt Lake, and we were both pretty much tomboys. We had no makeup on. We're in the pool, splashing around, just being kids, really. We're 15, or I was 15, she was a little older. And I come up out of the water and I see all around the pool is all these women, and all I can remember was they all had blonde, boofy hair, all sprayed out. It was the 80s. And, fully done up in makeup in their swimsuits, laying out by the pool, just looking like, waiting to get discovered. And, I just was like, whatever. I was still playing, and my friend and I were playing. And when we got out of the pool, I started walking back to the elevator, and this woman comes running after me, and I thought she wanted to get on the elevator, so I stood and waited for her and held the elevator. And then she came up to me, and she had an accent, and she said, where are you from? And I said, from Utah. And she's like, Utah? And I said, like, yes, Utah. And she says, do you want to come to Milano to be a model? And this accent sucked. I didn't do it. Was nothing like her accent. But I was like, what? Okay. And she gave me her card and her information. And that was before the modeling competition even started. And I didn't know at the time that, in Europe, they liked a more natural look. They liked your hair to be naturally straight. They liked darker hair. In the States, it was all blonde and boofy was the style. And the next day was the modeling competition, and you had to get up and do your whole presentation modeling thing. And then there were all these agents from all over the country and the world. They're scouting for models who were sitting there, and they would, rate you, and whoever got the most callbacks. Well, I don't know. It wasn't a competition. You just had to get them interested, and then see about joining one of these agencies. And I ended up getting the most callbacks of all the agencies, and the only agency I wanted to get a call back from was the one in Los Angeles, and that's the one I did not get a call back from. I was not Los Angeles style. And so my agent started taking me around to the different modeling agents and presenting me to them. And the elite from New York wanted me to go to New York, and I don't remember the other. It might have been Mademoiselle from New York. But I just didn't feel, I wasn't feeling it. I really liked the lady that I met from Italy. I felt a more, I don't know, genuine connection or something. I felt like the New York thing was just about money, and the Italy thing sounded a little more exciting and friendly in some way. And my agent was furious about that. So I ended up having a big fight with her over it, and screaming that I felt like I was just a piece of meat. And granted, she did pay for me to go down there, and her whole goal was to make money off of me, but I am a human. And I wanted to do what I wanted to do, a strong-willed human, by the way. And so we left the competition on bad terms, and I wasn't talking to her anymore, but I had the information from the people in Italy. So I sent them some headshots I had taken, and I wrote them a letter. And as soon as they got them, I don't remember, I think they called me, and they were ready for me to come out. And lucky for me, my grandmother, she was my father's mother, and even though my father was like this violent criminal who was also an intellectual, his mother was a college professor who taught at a university or a college in Kentucky that was the first college in the South to let blacks and whites go to school together. And she was a total liberal. And here's her son, this total Nazi and very violent. And there was a huge disconnect and a lot of denial going on. I think she knew about the abuse that he had grown up with from his father and maybe was trying to make up for it or just ignore it. She wasn't really capable of dealing with emotions at all. And but she was always trying to help us kids. So when my father was in prison, she would always take us to learn things, take us to go swimming, take us to go pick strawberries. She was always trying to do stuff for us. And she bought the house that we lived in. And, if it wasn't for her, we would have been really down and out. But she was also very controlling. But she offered to pay for my flight to go to Italy. And I don't even remember if I was supposed to pay her back or not. I can't remember at this point. So at first, my parents had all these things like your grandmother has to go with you to make sure you get there okay. And we discussed all these things. And then finally it just came down to I was just going to go by myself. And it was interesting because I had a boyfriend at the time, and the night before I was supposed to leave the country to go live on my own, I'm leaving on my own, and I'm supposed to go live on my own in Europe in these total unknowns at 15. My parents find out that I'm at my boyfriend's house and his parents aren't home, and they throw a fit and force me to come home, and I get in trouble over that. And the next day, when they took me to the airport, I remember walking onto the plane and I feel someone yanking me back, and it was my mom, and she was like, "Aren't you going to say goodbye?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." Like there was such a lack of love in between me and my parents that I couldn't wait to leave. I really feel like if I would have stayed there in that family, I would have ended up on crack in a gutter somewhere. Especially because as I was becoming a teenager, I was starting to defy my parents. I was starting to stand up to them. I snuck out to a dance once because, they were really controlling of me, and they weren't that way with my brothers. It was just me. And, the amount of violence that I received after that was pretty extreme, like putting my hands on the wall and having my dad hit me with this belt as hard as he could, like 30 times, to where I just went completely numb. And I was so furious that I wouldn't even cry for him. I was like, I'm not gonna cry for him because I hated him that much. So, and I hated that my mother tried to make me go along with my dad's polygamy. Prior to this, my father had a friend who he was trying to sell me to. They were making negotiations to sell me for $30,000 because I was his property. And my mother knew about it. So all these kind of things created a serious lack of love, and it was so easy for me to leave home. Like I didn't even think about saying. I mean, it just didn't even occur to me. I just couldn't wait to get out of there. And so I was off to my new adventure in Europe as a sovereign woman. And that is the end of chapter 1.